Welcome to the 1-3 edition of the Miami Dolphins in Depth. I am Omar Kelly, your host, columnist for the Miami Herald, and joining me is Barry Jackson. Last week we had Angry Barry. People were just frustrated. Barry had enough. I'm dying to know which Barry shows up this week after the Dolphins.
It's resigned, Barry. It's Omar. It's Barry. Just depressed, distressed, resignation. Barry, just realizing that this is our lot in life to have an NFL team that's incapable of making enough good decisions, either in the front office or with coaching or with personnel, to ever accomplish anything. I mean, it's been a quarter century. I imagine it's probably going to be another quarter century. So today's feeling is just a feeling of resignation that this is the way it's going to be, because there's an owner of the team who apparently can't recognize what good stewardship of a franchise is, or if he does recognize it, as at his age, may be simply unwilling to make the changes needed to get the franchise back on track. So today it's resignated, Barry. And you would be what? You would be what, Omar, today?
Out of solutions. I knew going into that game, everybody who sat here and thought that Tyler Huntley was the answer, the savior, I knew they would be disappointed. I didn't know to what degree, though. It was, the Dolphins pulled off a 31-12 loss to the Tennessee Titans, providing the Titans their first victory of the season. And for the majority of the game, from a defensive standpoint, I thought they did a pretty good job. Thought they held in there. Thought they gave their team a chance. Then it just unraveled offensively, as it continues to unravel all season. And we have seen a team that, what it reminds me of, Barry? It reminds me of, what those boats that have captains on them, where, the captain he knows how to sail the boat. He knows how to bring the boat to shore. He knows how to, do a little fisherman tie and tie the boat to the dock and the shore. This looks like a boat that is out at sea and the captain has been pushed off. And the captain is probably drowned. And everybody is at sea and nobody knows how to steer the boat. Nobody knows how to drive the boat. Nobody knows how to bring the boat to shore. I think that this stretch of games, this stretch of season has reminded me how important Tua is, how important good quarterbacking is, how important a backup is. And I just don't know if there's going to be relief at this point. Even if Tua does return, how much longer is he going to be able to play unless there's some major drastic changes made before his egg gets scrambled again? And then what happens? So here we are, Barry. We are 1-3 following a 31-12 loss to the Tennessee Titans. And Barry, you got any answers?
Well, I point to a couple of things that made me wonder last night. Obviously, neither of us has any issue with Huntley starting. It was the obvious choice to give him a start last night, even though, as you said, you never viewed him as a savior. I wonder why Jonnu Smith simply has not been involved in either the game plan, or perhaps he's been involved in the game plan and defensive calls or defensive schemes dictated the ball not going to him. But why did they spend so much time on Jonnu Smith running the ball in training camp in reverses than not using it a single time so far in 4 games? Why was he targeted only once last night when he was the only real, supposedly clear upgrade on this offense? So that's question number one. Question number two is, why are they running to the perimeter on 4th down with Tyreek? And I understand McDaniel was trying to trick Tennessee, but this is a Tennessee interior line that was missing Jeffrey Simmons. And I know very little has worked on 3rd and 4th down except the Alec Ingold quarterback or the Alec Ingold runs early in the season where they were successful in 3 in a row and then unsuccessful. So why are they running to the perimeter there? That's one thing. And then also, why is Jeff Wilson? I know he had the pregame knee injury, but why, when you need a power runner who can churn out yards, why is he not touching the ball at all last night? If he was not able to play, then why did he play 2 snaps at all? That's what's confusing to me. We didn't have a chance to ask McDaniel that last night. But if he was healthy enough to be put on the field for 2 offensive snaps, why didn't he carry the ball? Because he is your one pseudo power back, the one guy you would think would be the ideal runner in short yardage, in goal line. So I could go here with a list of 100 questions and roster mismanagement examples with you. But the bottom line is 11.3 points per game, worst in the league after averaging 27.9 last year. And there's just no clear-cut answer on the roster. McDaniel, I thought, was his strongest last night that he's ever been with us, Omar, in terms of saying there will be changes. He usually just gives us a bit of a word salad, talks around that. The question is, what changes can be done? I'm going to give you one that I would start with. I would say at tight end, even though Julian Hill's had some good moments blocking, has he earned consistently getting the most snaps at tight end? Do you need to rearrange the snaps at that position? Do you overlook the fact that Durham Smythe had a bad couple of first games and start playing him as much as you played him in past years? His playing time's way down this year, 18 snaps a game on average, 18 last night.
Durham Smythe is your answer?
Well, I mean, there are no clear-cut answers. I'm just talking about, things that maybe that could incrementally help to give Eric Ezukanma a chance. I know you say that he's been dealing with a foot injury with plantar fasciitis.
Eric Ezukanma is your answer?
Well, what answers might you turn to? There are just so few good ones on the roster. Would you go outside the roster and try to find a veteran receiver if Odell's not ready to come back this week?
Barry, I think it's fundamentally clear to me, and everybody will give Tyler Snoop Huntley a pass, except for me. I'm sorry. That was not good. I know you've only been there for 12 days and 6 practices, but you did not. If this is your best answer at quarterback, if this is your best answer at quarterback, and you're taking the approach that you're just going to hold it down till Tua gets back, and not even factoring in and calculating in, hey, what happens if Tua goes down again? Something is wrong, Barry. Something is fundamentally wrong with you if this is your best answer, because it's very abundantly clear. You don't have good enough quarterback play to give your team a chance. You don't have a good enough quarterback play to give your defense a chance. And if this organization has not called Teddy Bridgewater and begged him, hey, Teddy, just come, let's do a workout. Let's just see where you are.
Oh, I don't think Bridgewater's the answer. He wasn't very good during his time here. He's committed to coaching.
Okay, but he knows
there's no answer on the street. There's no answer on the street now. This was a monumental screw up from March of this year, from March of last year.
I disagree with you. Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sorry, Jimmy Garoppolo can come here.
What's Bridgewater going to do for you now?
What? Give you competent quarterback play. This is not competent.
Quarterback play competent when he was here? I thought it was average at best, barely adequate.
Are you getting average?
No, but I wouldn't blame last night on Huntley. He had a short time to learn the offense. Was he good? No. Was he awful? I didn't think it was awful. He was let down by skill position players. How about Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill not dropping passes? How about Tyreek Hill not fumbling on the pass back? How about his offensive line giving him some run blocking? Wait. I've got to make this point about the run blocking, because this, to me, of the 100 things that Chris Greer screwed up in terms of roster construction, to me,
no, they're good, Barry. They're good.
Aside from
he's laughing at you right now.
Yes. Aside from backup quarterback, we knew, everybody knows, that the only way you win December and January games against good opponents on the road is to have a power team, not a finesse team. And he gave short shrift to the offensive line. They can't block anyone. I know you're not a big fan of the Pro Football Focus metrics, but last night their run blocking grades were among the worst I have ever seen. According to PFF, everyone on their offensive line except Liam Eichenberg was terrible as a run blocker that last night. That included Aaron Brewer, who's normally at least adequate. Robert Jones was very poor. Austin Jackson was poor. Patrick Paul was poor. So how possibly are you going to survive deficient backup quarterback play if you cannot run the ball, because you have not constructed an offensive line that's good enough to run the ball? I'm not even going to bring up Derrick Henry. And you saw what he did to the Bills on Sunday night. So there were ways to win even with an adequate backup quarterback play. But once again, roster construction has been a failing. That's a consistent theme with this team for 25 years. No.
No. I'm not a big believer in that they constructed the roster properly. When we talk about how this roster was built, it was built on aged and injured players. Okay, what do you have going on right now? Where Jordan Poyer's sidelined by injury, age, injury history. You've got Jalen Phillips now sidelined by injury. We've got an injury history. You got David Long sidelined by injury history. Raheem Mostert sidelined by injury history. Teron Armstead sidelined by injury history. So you can't sit here and act like you're surprised about anything that's happening from an injury standpoint. Now, what I can say about the offensive line is not good enough. But in fairness to the team and the unit, the run game, Raheem Mostert, who had the second best offensive season of any back in the NFL last year, he's been on the sidelines for all but a handful of snaps in the first game. Will things get better when he gets back? That is your starter. Clearly, everybody who sat and said Devon Achane is going to be a savior, going to be the solution. Okay, Devon Achane gained 15 yards on 10 carries last night. It's not. There is no immediate fix. The hope is that a lot of the injured players you have sidelined get healthy, get back. Will this team be different, Barry, with Tua and a healthy Raheem Mostert?
Yes, I would say they'll be different against, at the very least, average teams, because there's a long history now of 2 years of this offense humming and excelling against average to below average defenses. So you would assume, because of Tua's body of work, because of Tyreek's and Waddle's body of work, that they'll at least be effective against teams that aren't very good. But we have no evidence that this offense can be effective against teams that are very good defensively or very good at all. And we have several of those on the schedule in the second half of the season, including Green Bay, including Houston, including San Francisco. It's debatable about the Jets, but their defense at the very least is pretty good. And obviously having to go to Buffalo. So I would feel confident that there'll be a competent offense once Tua comes back, but I'm not sure it's ever going to be a great offense against good teams, or even a good enough offense against good teams. You asked me about other solutions, Omar. I mentioned obviously two that would just be incremental ones that aren't going to change things dramatically. Playing Durham Smythe a little more, maybe giving Ezukama a chance. I also would say Jalen Wright. As long as Mostert is out with the chest injury, I want to see Jalen Wright. And this is no knock on Achane, but the bottom line is Achane's yards after contact has plummeted from a year ago. So some of the poor running game is on Achane not breaking tackles as well as he did a year ago. There's data to support that. His yards after contact has gone down by more than 50%. Right now for the season, he's a 3.1 per carry, which is 47th in the league at the time.
He's also playing with an ankle injury. Which
true. Although it's not on the injury report, and he's
while he is not on the injury report, I could watch him limp in the locker room every day.
Interesting. So I've seen him walking too. I don't know if it's his gait or what it is, but I would say this: among the players available to you on the roster, I want to see a little more Jeff Wilson, especially in short yardage situations, and I want to see more Jalen Wright. So if you're going to ask me about guys who are available, those
Jalen Wright's got a 3.3 yards per carry average.
Yes,
it's not much better. It's not much better than Achane.
No.
Yes, he's only had 16 attempts, and I'm not disagreeing with you, because I think that Jalen Wright, if he was able to handle more of the playbook and more of the there was a sack last night where I believe it was Achane's man. Austin Jackson took the inside man, which is what offensive linemen are supposed to do.
I think it was Jalen Wright. I think it was Jalen Wright.
It was Jalen Wright. Yeah.
Right. And I know that you made a good point on Twitter saying, well, was it a hot read? What responsibility did Jalen Wright bear in that situation? But obviously someone had to pick him up, whether it was a case of Huntley not identifying, Harold Landry as a blitzer in that spot. But
there could have been so many people doing something wrong on that situation. But I know everybody's like, oh, Austin Jackson. How does it? Well, it's better to pick up the guy closest to the quarterback and give the quarterback a little bit of time. This is what happens when you have an offense that everybody's out there and they don't know what they're doing, Barry. And the one thing that I will acknowledge and admit that I heard from Mike McDaniel last night that I found encouraging is that Mike basically said, hey, these are the things that worked for us last year. They're clearly not working for this year. We probably need to simplify things because what I always found very interesting, and this is what happens when you have an organization or regime in their third year. They've had success the first 2 years. They want to keep building on it, 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 building on it. And the reality is you have a very complicated offense, and not everybody is able to grasp it and pick it up in a timely fashion. And here you go. You don't have the magician, the maestro out there serving as conductor, making everything happen. And it looks like trash. And the question is, would it get better with Tua Tagovailoa at being back there as serving as the conductor, or is this offense just way too complicated and way too much? And they just need to pull it all back? Clearly, with Tyler Huntley, they pulled it all back. That makes you easier to play. That makes you easier to coach against. And I think the Tennessee Titans had a field day with what you did. Now, here's a question that I have going into this Sunday's game against the New England Patriots. Let's just say Tyler Huntley learns 20 more plays. Does it get any better after?
I'm skeptical. I would say, and this really could be an argument you could make in any one of three different directions. You could make a case for Huntley. You could make a case even for Tim Boyle because of the incompetence of the offense, even though Boyle might be the worst quarterback in modern NFL history. You could make the case for Skylar Thompson if his ribs are healed. But it's three bad options, obviously. I would say, Omar, I would give Tyler another start, see how it goes. If it's a disaster and if Thompson's healthy enough, maybe come in with Skylar later. Boyle would be my last option, even though he was competent during his snaps against Seattle, just because the body of work is so bad historically for him. 4 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. There's little reason for confidence to believe that Tim Boyle could turn things around. So my view would be give Tyler another start in New England, but if it's a complete debacle, if they're scoreless or have 3 points at halftime, go to Skylar. But at this point, I don't agree with you in terms of there being better options available outside. Ryan Tannehill's not coming here to start maybe one game before Tua comes back. And from all indications, Tua is on track to come back either October 27th against Arizona or early November, based on the reporting of Adam Schefter and others. So they're not going to get any sort of quality quarterback, Tannehill specifically, to come and learn the offense and start and then back up Tua the rest of the year. So they're stuck with what they have based on the decisions they've made. So I think all they can do at this point is maybe scan the waiver wire, Omar, not for a quarterback, but to see if there's anyone better at guard, at tight end, certainly as a number 3 or number 4 receiver, because even if Odell comes back October 20th against Indy, you still have a glaring hole for another receiver to play alongside Tyreek and Waddle. And also, I think you have to challenge your best players. I know Mike is a player's coach, but I do wonder how much he's telling Hill and Waddle this is unacceptable. Do you think he has that in them? Now, those two guys are pros. They know that what they put on tape the last couple of weeks is simply not good enough. You just wonder, does McDaniel forcefully tell them this, or is it not his personality? And then also, I was going to ask you this question. Can you continue to win when your 3 through 5 receivers are the quality of Berrios and D. Eskridge and Malik Washington? All of them played between 14 and 18 snaps last night. Or should they have signed a veteran on the waiver wire in the last 3 weeks? And do they need to do one now, knowing that Odell is not even assured of coming back in the next couple of weeks?
They had a veteran, Robbie Chosen. They decided to go a different route. I don't have an issue with receiver. The where they are. I mean, where they are with everything, Barry. Offensive line, quarterback, wide receiver, running back. Those are their doing. Those are their choices. That's how they decide to build the roster. Hell, nose tackle. That's another issue in itself. I know that's a pet peeve of yours as well. Their issues. They created this monster. This is their monster, and all of their answers are incorrect at this present moment. And the question is, what can potentially change that? I don't. It begins and ends for me with better quarterbacking play, and that play is not on the roster right now, not available to them. I'm sorry, but you can't go and maybe Tyler can. How much can Tyler Huntley significantly improve? And I'm of the opinion that Skyler, I'm sorry, you can't count on him for another 2 weeks because he's got broken ribs. Ribs don't magically heal. It's not gonna that's not gonna happen. The guy could barely run and barely throw the ball last week. And on top of that, Dolphin fans saw him for one game in a hostile environment and say, "That's it, I'm done, I'm out." And I'm not arguing against that because it was very ugly. But now let's take a step back. Let's look at what we saw last night from Tyler Huntley and say to ourselves, was it significantly worse? And then if it wasn't significant,
one point I'd make is, I would go with Huntley just because obviously it gives you that extra dimension of being able to run the ball, which was helpful a couple times last week. You just hope that the accuracy would be better on the deep throws because obviously there were two last night, including one to Tyreek that should have been a touchdown. If Tua were playing, it probably would have been a touchdown. So you just give him another week to see if he can correct that. Does he have it in him? But to me, the problems offensively are more a result of decisions with personnel than play calling. And I've been consistent with that. You always can quibble with specific play calls. On the fourth down, you can say, why did they run to the perimeter with Tyreek instead of putting Jeff Wilson in the game, ramming the ball up the middle? But to me, this is more a question of player procurement. Why did you not acquire a power back for the roster? Why did you give short shrift to the interior of the offensive line and put together two guards and a center who were simply not good enough for a power running game? And I say this respectfully to Brewer, who's had some success in the past, and to Liam, who actually hasn't had a bad season. Did you pick the right guy at tight end? Because obviously they don't trust Jonnu Smith enough to throw him in the offense more. Obviously, they totally screwed up backup quarterback. And also, I would point to 3 through 5 receiver. Once they knew Craycraft would be out, once they knew that Beckham would begin the season on injured reserve, it was, to use one of my new favorite terms, Omar, criminally negligent not to find better 3 through 5 receivers. Out of the 20 or 30 things that bother me about Chris Greer's personnel decisions, and McDaniel, because he's involved in every offensive personnel decision, one that's high on my list is using one precious spot on the 53-man roster on Grant Dubose, a developmental player, to begin the season when you knew that you did not have a number 3 receiver on the roster. How are you investing that position, that one value slot on a developmental receiver? I don't get it.
Okay, what did you want them to do, Barry? They claimed a receiver. They
acquire a veteran established receiver, or
how about Robbie Tilden?
How about, he was on their practice squad, and obviously he's unrioable. How about not investing in Odell Beckham, knowing he had an offseason procedure? And again, how many times?
That's a right. And they drafted 2 receivers before they even did that. If there's anything, and I rarely ever let them off the hook on anything. If there's anything I'm letting them off the hook, it's at the receiver. Yes, you're number 3. You consciously chose to sign Braxton Berrios a couple years ago. You realized he wasn't good enough this year. You re-signed him. Okay, no problem. You drafted 2. You claimed 1. You signed 1 as a practice squad. You added D. Eskridge, a talented early draft pick, former 4th-round pick. I mean, what more did you want them to do, Barry?
How about determining if Odell Beckham would be able to play for them and help them this season? It's just been so odd with Odell.
They rolled the dice and they got us snake eyes. But
right. But what's been so mysterious about the Beckham thing is this: very reliable reporters from NFL Network, including Tom Pelissero, characterized Beckham going on PUP in late July as a minor thing, saying he will be back quickly. McDaniel keeps saying he's had no setbacks, but he's not sure when he's going to come back. NFL Network, Pelissero and Rapport reported over the weekend that while the thinking originally had been that he would be back after 4 games, now the situation is fluid. And then you have Chris Grier saying Beckham wants to play, but we want to be cautious. So all of these things don't add up. If there are no setbacks, if Odell Beckham was telling the team in late August he's ready to play, then why is there even a question now about his availability in the next couple of weeks? Why is this suddenly thrown into question? If all of these contradictory things are to be believed, including McDaniel claiming that there's never been a setback, then how are we at this point where he was put on PUP with something minor, according to the League-owned network in July, and he's still not playing? So could the Dolphins have anticipated that this would have stretched into October? Perhaps, perhaps not. But it's symptomatic of a larger problem of investing in players who are hurt. We've seen it over and over again. Big money for Teron Armstead. Obviously, Bradley Chubb, they knew there had been injuries with the ACLs in his history. Isaiah Wynn, who now we have no idea if that's just money thrown away, if he's even going to play a snap this year. And obviously Odell as well, who had the history of knee problems the last couple of years, and he's still unable to help.
Here's my thinking, Barry, on all of those. OBJ and Isaiah Wynn are eligible to come off the PUP list today. If they are not activated, considering you have a 3-week window to put them out there on the practice field and see where they are. If they're not activated today or this week and begin practicing this week, clearly you made an error in judgment and decisions. And
correct.
That's on you. Now, my hope is you are at a panic state as an organization. If you can't push the panic button of adding and upgrading a guard position and adding and upgrading a number 3 receiver, if you cannot or are not in position to do that this week while you're in a panic state, something is clearly wrong and you made bad decisions. Because if you looked at Isaiah Wynn and you said, yeah, that's our starter for next year, and then didn't do anything else at guard, which is clearly what they didn't do, you effed up. If you looked at your wide receiver position and you said Odell Beckham's our number 3, that's our clear upgrade. Jonnu Smith is our new weapon. That's our clear, the Jonnu Smith package. And then both of them are not able to help you in the early portions of the season, you clearly effed up. Now, I don't know that because I don't know their status, and we'll get a good sense later on today when we talk to Mike McDaniel about whether OBJ will begin practicing. There is no, unfortunately, Barry, there is no savior walking through that door until, if he actually is cleared to play, Tua is cleared to return and step onto the field. And even then, what type of team is he going to be left with? Because right now, I'm not of the opinion, as good as the defense have played, losing Jalen Phillips, who would argue is probably a top 3 defender on that team, that's going to be tough to overcome. Not having a healthy David Long, it wasn't horrible last night, but it certainly wasn't good. Right. And then we've got Kendall Fuller, who should be coming back from the concussion, but also then losing Jordan Poyer to a shin injury. How long is that going to last? The one thing we know about aged players is it takes them longer to heal. So are we going to be riding with the safety? What's his name?
With Marcus May, who came in and played 19 snaps.
And to Marcus May's defense, he started 77 NFL games. I think you should be okay. He's been here. He knows the system. The question is, how much of a drop-off is it going to be from what you intended for your team? And can you afford any more drop-off from this roster and from this team? We know injuries are going to happen, but the clearest indicator of how good your team is how good is the quality of its depth. And right now, I think you're being exposed for a lot of depth issues that you have on your roster, Barry.
Right, and more so offense than defense. Couple points I want to make. One is, at the time of this taping, everyone were not aware of the severity of Jalen Phillips' injury. We should get more clarity on that on Monday. And also, I've joked with you about being a Debbie or Danny Downer on every podcast and being negative, because obviously the Dolphins give us a lot of material. But I do want to quickly point out a few positive things just to try to have some balance and perspective.
Positivity.
Being, of the Dolphins' offseason moves, Jordan Brooks ended up being a smart one. Their play at that position, I think, has been upgraded over what they got from Jerome Baker, 13 tackles last night. He's a good player. Kendall Fuller was fine before the concussion injury. So I think their decisions at cornerback, at least starting cornerback, have been good. They appear to have found a good player in Storm Duck, who was not abused last night, gave up a couple completions, made an excellent tackle on a third down play. Want to give him credit for that. Calais Campbell was a good signing as well. So there were a few things the Dolphins did well. And also, if we're going to put a positive spin on things on this very dark day, I would say this. If you can somehow split these next two games, Indy and New England, and then be 2 games under 500 when Tua comes back, when you have Mostert back, ideally Bradley Chubb would be back then, Odell would be back then. There are enough winnable games on the schedule in November. Maybe the Rams, who aren't great, even though you have to go out west. Obviously, you'll have the Jets twice in December and January. You'll have New England twice this month, and then obviously later in the season. There are enough winnable games where you can get maybe in the wild card competition heading into late December if you split these next 2 games. But if you lose both to fall to 1-5, then it's over, because then it's unrealistic to expect Tua to lift this team not only to 500 but above 500 and put you in position for maybe that final wild card spot.
It happened in 2021, Barry. If it happened in 2021, it could potentially happen again.
I will add this. What's so depressing to me about this season is not the 1-3. It's not the fact that they didn't find a good backup quarterback, which obviously they should have done. What's most upsetting to me is we saw this product with Tua and with most of their team in the first half against Buffalo and saw how far they are from being a Super Bowl contender. Why is that not a fair statement? Why is that not a fair statement? And again, I'm not putting it all on Tua. He's clearly a good quarterback. We've seen evidence of that by how they've looked without him. But how could you look at this team in the first half against Buffalo and say this is anything more than the fringe wild card contender that I've been telling you for months they are, even when healthy?
1 interception on a tip pass. 1 interception on supposedly a wide receiver running a bad route. Other interception, your offensive line collapses. You're trying to throw the ball away, avoid a sack, avoid taking a negative play, and you don't throw it out of bounds far enough. Quarterbacks have bad games. Tua was having a bad game. He was trying to redeem himself when he got concussed at the goal line. The Bills game, I'm sorry. If you're a Dolphin fan, I know it was gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching. You built up this team, and you're finally going to dethrone the Buffalo Bills. You weren't ready. The moment was too big for you. Everybody shrunk in that moment. That's one game.
How about at Kansas City last year? How about
why are we bringing up Kansas City? Why are we bringing up Kansas City?
Because their roster is even worse this year. I don't know how you could have looked at the first half of that Buffalo game and thought, you know what? When this team is healthy, when Tua's back, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be in the mix for an AFC championship. What from that game left you with that impression? That's Buffalo? What's depressing about this season. They've built a team and spent all of this money and all of this time for 5 years, and they built a team that at best is a 6th or 7th seed that isn't going anywhere. If that's not transparent to you, Omar Kelly, I don't know if you're watching glass half full perspective. I don't know if one of your eyes is closed. How can you look at this team and still say when healthy, this is a Super Bowl contending roster? Are you kidding me?
I didn't say it was a Super Bowl contending roster. Let's calm down.
Okay.
Playoff roster? Yeah,
it's a 7th seed. It's a 7th seed. I told you in August. This is a 6th or 7th seed that got worse on both sides of the ball. It's pretty simple to me, and that's played out that way, at least until the injuries. And now, obviously, all hell is broken loose because they were so delinquent in addressing backup quarterback and their offensive line and nose tackle during the offseason. So they have only themselves to blame, which is usually the case for 25 years around here.
Hey, Barry, here we are. We are having a typical Miami Dolphins season in 2024. Unfortunately, this is the reality of where this franchise has been for 2 decades. I don't know what fixes it outside of better quarterbacking play. We will see if we ever get there. On that note, we will be back on today's Tuesday. So we'll be back on Wednesday, I believe, Barry, giving you the best answers on whether Isaiah Wynn and Odell Beckham will actually be seeing the practice field. On that note, Dolphins in depth, we are out, and see you tomorrow.